I was doing this till it said I was live. Yes, here I am. Oh my goodness. It is time for the good fight again. Thank you so much for joining us for the good fight. I am super excited always to share this space with you, to have this conversation with you, the conversation that lasts beyond this moment. I'm so excited that we keep talking about it day after day after day because people be hitting me up. Woo, 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 woo. So I am Denise, and I am guiding this conversation on tonight. If this is your first time joining us for the good fight, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. If you always join us for the good fight, I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. In the spirit of Sawubona, you are welcome in this space, that spirit of oneness that invites us to receive the whole of who we are um, with each other. Like I receive the whole of who you are, you receive the whole of who I am, and together we are seen, we are heard, we are respected, we are celebrated, we are honored, and we are challenged to have this dialogue at the intersection of faith and social justice. I said I'm gonna stop saying that. I don't know if it's about faith and social justice anymore. I gotta change that. Um, but I don't know that's how it started out. So I'm just used to saying that. But this is a dialogue about, at this point in this year, this new year, it's a journey towards the pure and raw Jesus. Can we get to a different Jesus? Can we have a relationship with somebody else that's called Jesus? So yeah, so that's a whole different take on it now. So I'm gonna have to change that on the flyer. But anyway, welcome to this space where you are free to engage in any number of ways. One of the ways that you can engage is to locate yourself in the text to see if this is a conversation that fits you. Maybe it's not. You can try it on, and if it doesn't fit, then you don't have to worry about it anymore. But if it does, then you'll stick around and say, hey, what do I want to do with the conversation? Do I want it to live in my body? Do I want it to inspire me to think about some things differently? Do I want it to motivate me to act in a different way? Like, what is it? Like, what can this conversation do for you, if anything? That's up for you to decide. Another way that you can engage is to look through a window where somebody else's story is centered for you, and you don't have any responsibility. No one's going to hold you accountable for having heard it. When you do hear it, though, you are receiving a gift. And that's the most important thing for you to know, that to hear somebody else's story is an absolute priceless gift to receive. And that's all you have to do is receive it. And then the third way that you can engage is to walk through a door. So as I was saying earlier about the conversation doesn't have to end at 8 o'clock, but we can still talk about it. Whether you're talking to me about it or not, it doesn't matter. But you can still be thinking about it, talking about it, reading about it, studying about it, researching about it, disagreeing with it. Like, all of that can still be happening beyond this space. And so that's what we mean by walking through a door. And then finally, you can hit me up. You can hit me up in the comments right here, or you can DM me. You can hit me up. I put my number in the description, 228-236-7440, 228-236-7440. That reminds me, I need to go through my phone and answer some people's texts. I know I owe some of y'all some responses. I will do that. Absolutely, I will do that. And so I want to have this conversation tonight. And I do want to just remind us a little bit of what we talked about last week, because it seems like this year it's going to, like, this is going to be a progression. Like, things are going to be, it's not a series per se, but one thing is leading to the next, to the next, to the next. And you don't have to have listened to the previous week to get it, but I do want to remind us of some things that were said. I know how I'm addicted to this stuff. My mama told me I was addicted years ago, and I told her no, she was not true, but she is true. There's a whole special about how they put an addictive agent. There's an addictive agent in this. It is, and I'm addicted. Yes, I have tried to get off. I feel like I heard somebody say, well, have you tried something else? Yes, I have tried several somethings else, and it has not worked. But last week, what we started with was chapter one, and on this journey towards this pure and raw Jesus. I want to continue to give thanks to Rick, because he gave me those words when we were first talking about this pure and raw Jesus. And again, thanks to Phyllis Brown for contributing to this space in terms of asking, what does it look like to have a Jesus that is free from the trappings, free from all of the indoctrination, free from the beating over the head that we received, whether it was as when we were children growing up, when we were adults having gotten into a situation that may have not been so good for us, and then people are like, well, you should have been, you need Jesus, you need, and however we came to know Jesus in a way that has shaped our understanding up until now. And so now we're on a journey to say, let's get rid of all of that somebody else gave us, all of that somebody else forced onto us, all of that somebody else that we walked into without even knowing. Like, we implicitly became Christian or faithful or Jesus followers, whatever your language is, simply because it's all that we knew. We didn't know that we had any other choices. Nothing was presented to us as a choice. And then sometimes it was presented to you as a choice, but then you felt like if you made the choice, it was going to be a problem. So we're on this journey. And so the first question that I had last week was, do I need Jesus to be my God? Do I need Jesus to be God? And we talked about that. And I landed on the fact that I don't need Jesus to be God for me. I want Jesus to be a companion. I want Jesus to be a helper. I want Jesus to be a mentor and a guide. I can think about Jesus in that way. I want Jesus to be a revolutionary because that's what I need in my life. Like, I need a revolution. I need somebody that's going to, I tell this story a lot. So my mom and I have this, I don't know if it's a unique relationship because maybe all mothers and daughters are like this. I'm not really sure. But if I call my mama and I am upset, my mama is going to be upset too. It don't matter who it is. If I'm upset, if you have made me upset, she is upset for two reasons. She's upset because you have upset me, and she's upset at you for upsetting me. So she mad. She mad. And whatever I say, if I'm like, and then they did so, she's like, girl, what they do? So she'll say, so what I say all the time is that she will get in the ditch with me. If I'm in the ditch, she will get in the ditch with me. My brother, Derek, on the other hand, the older of the three of us, he is one that talks so much about the importance of not allowing our emotions to drive us. Not saying that you cannot be emotional. That's not the message at all. Not saying that you should not give space and honor your emotions. That's not the message at all. But making sure that we don't allow those emotions to cloud our judgment. So how do you divest? Like, how do you extract the emotions from the moment that you have to make a decision, so that you can make a decision while you are sober, rather than being drunk with emotions, whether being high with anger or whatever the emotion is. And so he's taught me to focus on the what and not the who. He said, because a lot of times emotions are wrapped up in the who of it all. So when I tell my mama's story, it's her daughter telling her this. So she's mad because you have upset her daughter, not because you've upset some woman, but you've upset her daughter. So the emotions are tied to the relationship. So he's like, well, if you take away the who, then you can focus on the what, and you have a better chance of making a more sound decision. And so that's the kind of Jesus that I need. I need a Jesus that is not going to get in the ditch with me, but a Jesus that says, hey, let's think about the what here. Like, let's not focus on it. Come on, let's calm down. Let's breathe. Let's do whatever we need to do to work through these emotions so that we can think, so that we can make a decision that's going to be more effective than the one we would make if you were still in the ditch with your mama. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad my mama got my back. But sometimes I have to call my brother after I call my mama, or before. And so we were talking about this kind of Jesus, like, how do we get to this kind of Jesus? And so chapter 1 was finding out, trying to decide for yourself, because I'm deciding for myself and I'm asking you what you think for yourself. I'm deciding for myself that no, I don't need Jesus to be God. Not at all. I need Jesus to be a friend, confidant, mentor, guide, helper. I also need Jesus to be somebody that I can be honest with and tell the truth about. And like, look, I don't believe what you just said. What you just said is not true, sir. I need to be able to have that kind of relationship. So that was the first chapter we were talking about on last week. Like, who do we need Jesus to be? And again, that's for you to decide. But for me, I've decided that Jesus does not have to be God. Not at all. And then I thought about this today. And I'm going to say this is the last thing I'm going to say about last week. I saw this. I was looking for some pictures for tonight's session, and I saw this one right here. Let me pull up this picture really quickly. Look at this picture. It says, this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. It's down there at the bottom of the picture. It says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Let me read it one more time. God made him. Him in this case is Jesus. God made Jesus, the one who had no sin. God made the sinless man become sin for us, for me and for you, so that in Jesus we might become the righteousness of God. So I'm like, wait a minute, does this make sense? So if he didn't have any sin at all, you're gonna make him become sin for somebody that we've been taught was full of sin, so that in the one you just made sin. Now I'm gonna be righteous. Righteous meaning I'm gonna be morally just. I'm gonna be right. I'm gonna be correct. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be of more. I'm gonna have a good moral compass. So wait now, listen now. God made Jesus. Now we have been taught that this is God's son. So God made his child who was perfect. You can't be perfect anymore. I need you to be sinful. So the people that are sinful, now they're going to become right. But they're going to become right through you, who I just made sin. And so I was just wondering to myself, I was like, I really don't need Jesus to be God for me. Because like, how did that God stuff work out for you, Jesus? How did that work out for you? I'm not understanding that. I'm not seeing your benefit. I'm not seeing how it benefits you. But I just thought about that as I was preparing for today, and I just wanted to put it up there. And I know that somebody has another interpretation that I would be more than happy to hear. And then we can chat about it. We can go back and forth about it, because I've heard several interpretations. I have had several interpretations as a pulpit pastor. So I'd be more than happy to entertain that conversation, to engage. I don't want to say entertain, engage in that conversation. So tonight we're talking about, okay, if the first step is to decide who you need Jesus to be, this pure and raw Jesus. And you cannot root it in a scripture, right? If we are going to divest from the system of religion that is a measure of control, that's the systems of white inhumanity, the systems of oppression, the systems of war, the systems of exclusion, if we're going to divest from all of that, have a Jesus without the trappings, then you cannot define Jesus using the Bible. That is the source of your entrapment. Cannot do that. So you have to think about this on your own. You got to figure this out through other means other than the Bible. So if Jesus, you got to figure out who Jesus is for you. That is who you need Jesus to be, and that's number one. Or you could even say, I don't even need a Jesus. I think about James Baldwin. I want to say it's in the documentary I Am Not Your Negro, where he asks the question. It might have been in a book of his I was reading. I don't know. I'm in love with James Baldwin, so I don't remember where I heard it. But he asked the question, why did the world even need an N word? You know what N word stands for, right? Why did the world even need one? Why did you create it? Because God didn't create that. You created the world. You created that. So why did you even need that? And so some of you might ask that question, like, do I even need Jesus? Like, do I? Because I can have a God, I can have a higher power, I can have a deity, I can have a universe, I can have nature, I can have all of that. Do I have to have a Jesus? And so that's absolutely a question to ask on this journey. But then here is the second question for me. Okay, after I decide then who Jesus is for me, if anybody at all, then I got to figure out who I am. Like, who am I in this relationship that I'm having if I choose to have a Jesus, or if I choose not to have a Jesus, if it's just straight relationship with what I believe to be something bigger than I am. Because you don't even have to call it God. Like, I'm not proselytizing here. I'm not trying to get anybody to come to Jesus. I'm not trying to get anybody to come to know God. We're having a conversation and a dialogue. And I believe that the spirit, I do believe in a spirit and a soul. I believe that the spirit will move within you to help guide you in whatever direction you want to go. And so I was thinking, well, then who am I? And so I was watching this documentary called Painkiller. Have y'all seen this documentary called Painkiller? It's about the creation of OxyContin and the beginning of this epidemic, this opioid epidemic with the Sackler. Is it Sackler? Richard Sackler, Mortimer Sackler, with the Sackler. It's three of them, the Sackler brothers. I think I'm saying their last name right. So I'm watching this this documentary. In the documentary, they need Curtis Wright, who works for the FDA, Federal Drug Administration. They need him to approve their application for this drug to be scheduled and be able to be prescribed to people. So they have to have this approval as part of the protocols in order to get this drug on the market, in the pharmacies, into the hands of the people. Like, they've got to have this approval. And Curtis Wright is not, he's not here for it. He's like, Curtis Wright is a scientist, and he's saying, no, I can't do this. Like, it does not make sense. I got a problem with how much the potency of the drug. He just got all kinds of problems. They keep submitting the application, and he keeps denying it. And then one of the Sackler brothers says, because he's motivated by his father. His father dies, but he can hear his father, like, they're figments of his father that show up in moments of crisis for him when he needs some guidance, he needs some help. He'll hear his father's voice, or he'll see his father's face. And his father said, well, you know what you gotta do? You gotta mice them. Like, what? Yeah, you know what you gotta do? Mice them. Now, now, because we're talking about drugs, because we're talking about the protocols for getting a drug on the market, I thought he was talking about like real mice. Like, you've got to make sure that you do the work with the mice in order to see how the drug is going to affect the mice, so that you can do your studies, and then you're going to go from the mice to the humans. Like, that's the natural order of things when you are trying to get something passed through the FDA. And so I'm thinking that's what he's talking about. He's like, no, mice, this doesn't have anything to do with rodents at all. Nothing at all to do with rodents. When he's talking about micing them, he's actually talking about these 4 words right here that I thought I had already. Here they are right here. So these are the words. He was like, you got to figure out which parts, which aspect of the person's livelihood are you going to attack? Are you going to critique? Are you going to use to get what you want from the person? And so MICE is an acronym for money, ideology, coercion, or ego. Is it money? How much money do they want? Ideology, what is it that they believe in? And then coercion, and then ego, then what makes them feel good? What's going to make them feel like the big man on campus? Like, what is it? And so he's like, you got to mice them. And I really had to stop the documentary. I have to do that sometimes. I have to stop reading a book. I have to stop watching the documentary. I have to just pause for a moment and just go silent and think about this. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. On this journey toward divesting ourselves from the trappings of Jesus, then we've got to tell ourselves some truths about how we got here in the first place. And one of the, because me, I've been on a roller coaster with weight my whole life. And so one of the things that the doctors always say, and I get tired of them saying, and I really don't want nobody else to say this to me. He'll be like, you didn't get here overnight. Like they'll say we, like it's their problem. We didn't get here overnight. So it's going to take longer than overnight, to to change what I'm looking at, what I'm dealing with. And so we have to say the same thing about us. Whatever it is that we are believing, we did not get here overnight. Like there has been a concerted effort on somebody's part, largely our own, because once we decided that it was what we were going to believe for ourselves, many of us went in, I mean, full steam ahead, hook, line, and sinker. We were ready for it. We were here for it. We were excited about it. We were joyful about it. We were testifying about it. We were telling our story wherever we could. Some of us became preachers. Some of us became evangelists. Some of us became what are the pastors. Like we were so enthralled with what it is that we were believing that we began to feed it ourselves. So other people may have brought us into it, but then we took it from there. And so we have to begin to tell ourselves some truths about how we got to this point. And so when I thought about the mice, I said, wait a minute, I don't want to talk about money tonight. I don't want to talk about ideology tonight. I don't want to talk about ego tonight, but I do want to talk about coercion. That's the one that struck me the most, because it harkens back to this conversation last week when Phyllis Brown was on, because she asked about a question about sin. And I said, oh, we're going to get to sin next week. We're going to talk about sin next week. And so when I thought about coercion, I was like, oh, I love it when a plan comes together. And so when he was talking about the C in mice, the coercion, like we're going to attack this person because we're trying to get what we want from them. We're trying to extract something that we need from them. Where can we attack them so that we can get them to do what we want them to do? In other words, it's some measure of control. I'm trying to get you in a position where I can use you for my benefit, whatever that using looks like. And so the question is, if you're going to coerce somebody, the question is, what scares them? Now, I'm just telling you how it was in the documentary. There may be different understandings of the word coerce, and I'm okay with that. But this is what they were asking. This was the question they were asking in the documentary. And I said, oh my goodness, let me just stop for a moment and think about this. And so when we think about the entrapment, and we think about the trappings of what it means to be in relationship with the Jesus of our childhood, or the Jesus of our late adulthood, the Jesus that we came to know at whatever point in our lives, maybe it was when we were incarcerated. When we think about the trappings, what comes along with it is this doctrine of sin, this belief, this set of beliefs that says you are a sinner who is in need of God's grace. And if you are going to live into this faithfulness with the way that we have been indoctrinated, then you must accept your fate as a sinner. And you must know that every single day of your life, that's who you are. It's interesting to me, though, because I have a friend who is a former, used to be addicted to substances. And I think I don't know if it was in Narcotics Anonymous, but in one of those meetings, they said to him, like, this is who you are. Like, you're a drug addict. Like, you got to know that about yourself. Like, you got to work to not be that, but that's who you are, or something. He was like, that ain't who I am. Like, that may have been what I've done, but that is not. And he was like, I'm not saying that. I'm not owning that. I'm not claiming that. I'm not receiving that. No. And he walked away from that life. Like, I'm not doing this. I made up my mind. This is who I'm going to be. But it's also interesting because he is a staunch Christian. Like, now you told them people you weren't finna be no drug addict, but we finna be a sinner. How does that work? How does that work for us, where we have decided that it is okay every day to wake up and tell ourselves that we are sinners, meaning that we are inferior, meaning that we are incapable of making the right decisions unless Jesus is there for us all the time to make sure that we make the right decision. Because without him, like just me on my own, I cannot do it. Like most of us, when we think about the strength of who we are as people, as individuals, as personalities, that strength is usually rooted in, I know that I can handle myself. I know that I can make the best decisions for my life. I know that I am able to help and to guide and to be who other people might need me to be, as well as being who I need to be for myself. Like, I'm well able, like I'm capable, I'm proficient, I'm competent. Like, that's what we believe about ourselves. And so it's interesting that we feel that way in the world. And then when it comes to faith, we say, oh, but no, I can't make the decision about sin by myself. I have to, somebody else has to help me make that decision. And so I was trying to think about what got us to, like, what happened. And I said, I could easily see how this is coercion. Like, you're scaring me, and you're scaring me. And I want to pull up this picture to see if some of you might have seen this picture before. Like, I don't know how you have, I don't know the graphics you have around your faith. I'm a very symbolic. Yeah, I'm kind of visual with my faith. Like, like, it helps me to see what this looks like, to see what this God looks like. I'm not talking about with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, but it helps me sometimes to look at visuals. And so here's a visual about sin that I want to pull up for us for just a minute. Oh, where's my other? Yeah, I'm gonna pull this up for just a minute. Where's my other picture? Why won't they stay? I don't understand why I keep losing my pictures. Okay, so here is this visual that talks about, that I think does a good job of bringing to our mind's eye, like to give us something to look at, even when we are away from the computer, away from an actual picture. But this is what it looks like. So here we are as people on the left side, and God is on the right side, and we've got to figure out how to get to God, because we have sinned, because we are sinners, then we are not in relationship with God. Like, there's no way that we can know God. There's no way that we can be fully known by God. There's no way that we can be in right relationship with God. There's no way that we can live a faithful life. Like, there's no way that we can live into who we believe God has created us to be, because sin separates us. And look at this big old chasm. Like, you have got to do, if you want God, you have got to do something about this sin. And so most of us, if we say, I want to be in a relationship with God, and you say, oh my goodness, the only way that you can be in a relationship with him is with God, because God is not a man, with God is to know that you are a sinner and that you are separated from God, and you've got to get your life right. The only way you're going to get to God is to get rid of this sin. And so then you have to get rid of this sin. So sin becomes this huge part of our, so you mean to tell me that this act that I'm doing, whatever people are calling sin, and that's another conversation. Like, who gets to decide what sin is? Right? Because some people say sin is drinking wine. Some people say sin is smoking a cigarette. Some people say sin is abusing narcotics. Some people say sin is wearing a dress. Some people say sin is wearing makeup. Some people say not wearing a dress, wearing pants. Some people say that sin is cutting your hair. Some people say that sin is being same gender loving. Some people say that sin is having a baby out of wedlock. Some people say that sin is living with somebody that you're not married to if you're in a romantic relationship. Like, all of these, like, who gets to decide what sin is? And so since there's like all of this out there and you hear it from everywhere, then how do you really know what to do? Like, every day I feel like if I'm going to live this life trying to manage this sin that I have no choice but to have in my life, because the doctrine says that the belief says that I was born this way, so I have no control of it. I feel like I'm walking on land, like, every day. Like, what mistake am I gonna make today? What kind of life can I live if all I have is you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't. Try raising a child, like rearing a child in a home where all you say is what you can't do. It doesn't work. You can do it, but it doesn't work. It's not healthy at all. Oh, wait a minute, it's a comment. Oh, wait, let me see how long it's coming. Oh, that's Miss McClay. Hey, yeah. I was in Greenville not too long ago, and I did not have time to stop at all. And I went by the church, and I was just looking at the church. I was looking at the marquee. I remember I used to be out there putting those putting those sayings up. Oh, Miss McClay, and your John, your lovely partner. Yeah, tell him I said hello. I'm so glad that you were present tonight. Um, and so it's like with all of this coming at me, like how can I, how do you function like that? How do you function like that? And so what we it's difficult. And so we, of course, we have these verses that we stand on about being in a posture of prayer, like always praying, pray without ceasing, that kind of thing. But if sin is what's going to separate me from God, and I have no choice but to be a sinner because I was born a sinner because of what Adam did, like that's the teaching, then I've got to accept this. I've got to just accept and own and embrace that I am a sinner. That's difficult for me to do at this point in my life. I'm gonna tell you another reason why, for a lot of reasons, but here's one reason. So I was looking up pictures. Remember, I was telling you I was gonna give you some pictures. I was looking up pictures for sin, and I found four. I found several of them, but I'm only gonna put up this collage, four of them, and tell me what you think about when you see these pictures. I'm just gonna leave them up here for a few minutes. Now, remember, I looked up sin. I Googled the word sin. I asked for images. I asked for images as it relates to the Bible and as it relates to God. And these are the pictures, some of the pictures that came up. Several pictures came up, but these are some of the pictures that came up. And so I'm going to actually Selah on this one with this picture. You know, Selah, according to this book that some of us revere so much that we call the Bible, Selah means to pause and calmly think about that. Selah. Selah. You usually see it if you're reading the Psalms, it's usually out in the margins of the Psalm. Sometimes it's right beside the last word in a stanza. But it says, yes. So I'm going to put the picture up and just let it sit there for 7 Mississippis. And then I'll keep talking. Here we go. Remember, these are all pictures that came up when I asked about sin. There might have been more than 7 Mississippis. So I'm looking at these pictures, and there was so many images like this of chains and balls on chains around people's ankles and chains all around your feet, and your feet. Some people were on their knees, and so the bottoms of their feet were facing upward, and their feet were all dirty and nasty looking with the chains around them. And I said, this imagery about being a sinner certainly evokes the same imagery for me that I've seen around being a slave. You said, well, Denise, of course it does, because in the Bible it says that we're supposed to be slaves for Christ. In a world, and particularly in a country, if we want to talk about sin, we talk about the original sin being enslavement. The enslavement of bodies, of Black bodies, of African bodies, members of the African diaspora. I'm to a point now in my life where you can't talk to me like that. I can't be that. I cannot be in relationship with somebody who says that they love me. Because there are some people who say, don't talk about religion. Let religion go. Don't talk about religion. It's not about religion. It's not about all of this church stuff. It's not about that. It's about love. God is love. And so religion should be like, if you boil all the religions down, this is what people will say. If you boil them all down, what do they have in common? It's love. Okay, let's go with it. It is difficult for me to be in relationship with somebody who loves me, but demands that I be a slave and call them master. What? What kind of relationship is that? And why is it necessary for me, in order for Jesus to love me? Because remember, the imagery of the slave comes in and thinking about sin, and sin is something that you said I had no choice over because I'm born into it because of Adam's fall, and so now I have no choice but to be a sinner, and I'm trying to escape it so that I can be in love with this God, and I want this God to be in love with me. That's all I desire. That's all I want. I want to be loved by this glorious being, this glorious force that is spiritual, that speaks to me and feeds me. I want to be in relationship with you, but the only way that I can do that is to liken myself to a slave and then bow down to you, to call you master, in order for you to determine every day whether or not I'm good enough to go outside and represent you and be a reflection of you, or a divine expression of you, whatever language you want to use. I don't want to get bogged down in the language. Like, why? And so I was really interested in this idea of sin. And so I was like, because I don't believe that that's what the fall was about. I don't believe that's what, I don't see that anywhere when I read the Old Testament. Genesis chapter 3, we went through this last year. I don't see it anywhere where God says you are now a sinner. I don't see that anywhere in the text, nowhere. And so I was trying to figure out, like, where did this come from? Because I don't believe God said it. I do not believe Jesus said it. I do not believe Sophia said it, who we believe, scholars believe, is the third person. If you believe in the Trinity, that third person would be the Holy Spirit, Sophia, which is the feminine expression of God. For all those people who want God to be a man, like, clearly, I need you to do some work. I need you to do some more work, dig a little deeper. Sophia is part of that conversation. You don't have to believe it, but you should at least know that that's part of the conversation. And so I'm like, where did this sin stuff come from? And so when I started reading about it, like, the writers of the Bible, like in the Old Testament for sure, like they weren't messed up by no sin. And they certainly weren't attributing it to Adam. If anything, if anybody way back in the day, if anybody said anything about Adam initially, they were like, yeah, he did that to himself. Like, that's his own personal behavior. Not that he was acting on behalf of all of humanity, but you need to be held accountable for your own. He needed to be held accountable for his own misgivings or his own wrongdoing. Some people are like, I don't even feel like it's necessarily wrongdoing when he ate the pomegranate out of Eve's hand right there with her. It's like, I just think maybe this was before his time. Like, he wasn't supposed to eat from the tree yet. Like, they really are not all caught up in this sinful language like we are, because again, this is part of our trapping, right? This is part of our indoctrination. And so I just found it fascinating to just read all of the different ways that people were looking at what happened in the garden. As a matter of fact, some people like the whole story of Genesis is like allegory. This ain't true. So I'm like, why are we so caught up in this? Well, because again, if this is the way you have been reared, for like me, but I was a Christian in my mother's womb. So what choice did I have? Like you said, girl, when you got grown, you could have had a choice. Well, by then, I was too far gone. I could hunt. Don't get me started on the list I could make for you as to the why I was in relationship with God through Jesus Christ, empowered by the Holy Spirit. And I used to say that like that all the time. And so this sin has come in later. This is a later addition to what we understand about Christ. And it most of the people who talked about its introduction, they're gonna root it in Paul. When I tell you that doggone Paul, I got some choice words for Paul if he is anywhere around one of these days. I don't even know what we're gonna say. I'm gonna say to him. I'm gonna pop off though. I'm definitely gonna pop off. But Paul, and then Paul is, when Paul is talking about this sin, he's getting his information from books like Baruch, Baruch, that we don't even use in the Protestant Christian Bible, or for Ezra, where we don't even have in our Bible. So it's like, so it's like me saying to you, it's not, it's like, what it is a choice, right? If we can say that sin did not originate with God, if we can say that it came in later through the writings of some other people based on their understanding, based on their interpretation, which is the same thing you can say about me. When I offer this information to you and ask you to consider it, then it's based on my understanding, my interpretation, my relationship, my lived experience. Other people are doing the same thing. When you go to church on Sunday, the person who stands in the pulpit is basing whatever he, she, or they is saying on their own understanding, their own interpretation, their own inspiration, their own motivation, their own agenda. All of us are doing the same thing. So if we all do the same thing, is it possible for you to say, well, wait a minute, if there's some stuff they done made up because they were trying to get a point across, then that means that I don't have to own it. Oh, okay then. I can let that go. Yes. There's a choice we can make. And I have decided, I mean, I really am standing firm on this. It took me a minute to be able to stand firm, because I'm saying some stuff and I'm like, wait a minute, I've been believing something else for 50 years. Like, how you gonna just come and say something different? Like, it's hard. I know it's hard. But I'm fully persuaded at this moment. Like, no, I do not have to be in relationship with somebody who claims to love me. Yolanda Adams, I think she's the first person I ever heard say that Jesus is the lover of my soul. When she said that, I was like, oh, yes, the lover of my soul. That's deep to me. That is some stuff that you can't just find anywhere, right? So I'm like, if this is the lover, if Jesus is supposed to be the lover of my soul, and that God makes a covenant with me. I heard somebody say that a long time ago, and some words come out of people's mouths. I'm like, I'll take that. That we made a covenant, that God made a covenant with us. And a covenant is stronger than an agreement. It's stronger than a promise. It binds us together. And God says, I am yours and you are mine. We are one in the spirit. Like, God says this, I am yours and you are mine. I'm like, yes, but why would I need to be in a relationship that's that tender, that's that intimate, that is that powerful, that forceful, that transformative? Why would I want to be in that relationship only as a slave? And why would I want to refer to the person that's supposed to be my partner? The person who's supposed to say, I'm on this journey with you forever. Not even death can separate us. Because I used to say the traditional, when I used to officiate weddings, I used to say the traditional saying, till death do us part. But this relationship says, no, we're stronger than that. Oh, where is that verse in Song of Solomon? Song of Solomon. Is it chapter 4, verse 6? Is it chapter 6, verse 4? But Song of Solomon is so beautiful. You don't really hear people preaching about that, because these some people having premarital sex, and the Bible the preachers don't want to talk about that, and they definitely don't want God to ordain it, because that's another. Wait. I'm getting ahead of myself with these chapters. Don't let me get ahead of myself with this chapter. This is a chapter about sin. This is a chapter about sin. I was trying to see if I could find it really quickly, but this is the Song of Solomon. That's what some people call it. Some people call it the Song of Songs. I want to see, because I think that it is. I thought it was 4 and 6, but that's not right. So I'm probably not gonna be able to find it, because I don't want y'all waiting on me to find it. We could keep talking. Yeah, I have to. But it's about the power of love. That's the verse. The verse I'm trying to look for in the Song of Solomon, power, and they might have it. Oh, I did it wrong. Anyway, I don't want to get caught up trying to find that, but maybe I'll remember next week to bring it up. Maybe I will. Anyway, and so what I'm offering is the ability for us to consider that because the people who are writing the Bible, the people who wrote the Bible, are we're doing the exact same thing that we are doing right now, where we are having conversation, we are engaging in dialogue, we're challenging each other. They were having arguments. They were having arguments. They were you know how we have denominations now? Like people split off because you said that like United Methodists believe that you can be sprinkled. That is a form of baptism. Well, Baptist people say, no, you absolutely have to be immersed. And so that belief, that conviction, that piece of doctrine, doctrinal information, like separates church. Like the same thing was happening back then. Oh, Triana said Song of Solomon 8. Let me see if that's it. I can never 8 what? Oh, let me put it up here for everybody to see. What verse? This is the new International Readers version. I just happen to be on the New International Readers version. Thank you, Triana. I'm just going to 6 and 7. That's what you put up there. Yeah, 6 and 7. Listen to this. New International Readers version. Hold me close to your hearts, where your royal seal is worn. Keep me as close to yourself as the bracelet on your arm. My love for you is so strong, it won't let you go. Love is as powerful as death. Love's jealousy is as strong as the grave. Love is like a blazing fire. Love burns like a mighty flame. No amount of water can put it out. Rivers can't sweep it away. Suppose someone offers all their wealth to buy love. They won't even come close. That won't even come close to being enough. And so this is the kind of relationship that we say that we are in with God. And if you want Jesus to be a part of that and the Holy Spirit, that is fine. But the point is that this is all of this kind of love, this amazing, this awesome, this fascinating, this life-changing, this chill-giving, this spell-binding kind of love that you have for this person who says, I'm with you even beyond death. He said, but I got to be shackled and as a slave. And so I'm offering an opportunity for us to make choices, because remember, we are curating this journey. We're on this journey of how do I get to the pure and raw Jesus? And we are creating it for ourselves, by ourselves, based on what we need, what we want, what we've experienced. You know how sometimes we'll say, I don't know what I want, but I know what I don't want. So we're not sure what it's going to look like in the end, but we know what we don't want it to look like because we've been there, done that. And so if we could begin to think about the creation of the Bible being something, being a book that people put together, like all kinds of stuff. People added, subtracted, people did all this kind of stuff. They think of it as editing. Any book writer, any author worth his, her, or their salt is going to have an editor look this over and make some changes, tweak some stuff, use another word, add a period or a comma. Oh, because don't even get me started with the first Bible didn't even have consonants. Didn't even have punctuation. So we put the punctuation in there. How did we know where the punctuation was supposed to go? And so when we begin to think about the Bible as if we begin to think about it as a very important book, then if we can see it in that way, we would be one step closer to saying, well, if that's what it is, then I can take some parts of it and I can leave some parts of it. Or I can get rid of the whole thing altogether. There are some books on my shelf that I started reading. I can't get with you. I'm gonna tell you one of them. It's the Tyler Perry book. Don't mess with a black woman. Don't make a black woman take her earrings off or something like that. It was in the Goodwill for $2.49. And I was like, Tyler Perry, what you finna say about a black woman? Yes, there are times when I read books just because I want to critique them. Yes, there are times when I want to get this just so I can point out all of what's wrong with it. I couldn't even get past chapter 2. I'm like, I'm not reading this nonsense, and I put it down. Who else's book did I try to read? And I'm like, I'm not reading this mess. I think I tried to read Omarosa's book. Was it Omarosa? Y'all remember Omarosa that was in the cabinet with Trump? I was like, I'm going to read. I was like, I'm not reading this mess. And so it is possible, if we can see the Bible as a book that may or may not be filled with all of these principles that we want to apply to our lives. It may not be. Then we can say, okay, if I have choices, then perhaps I'm going to choose not to be a slave. Perhaps I'm going to choose not to be a sinner. Is it necessary for my life to be a sinner? Is it necessary for my life to be a slave? The question we can ask to white slave owners, why did you need a slave? Why did you need that? Oh, because you wanted to use them to benefit from them so that you can become rich and powerful. Oh, okay, well, let's think about that. Why do we need Christians to be a slave? So we can use this guilt of never getting it right, because you ain't gonna ever get it right. There is no part of the faith of my childhood that ever allows you to get it right. You are forever and ever and ever. And even when Paul says, I used to be a child, and when I was a child, I thought like a child, but now that I'm an adult, I think like an adult. Like, so I'm different. Even in the evolution of his mind, he still does not give us a way out from sin. So you are forever trapped in this place. What part of our lives do we live in where there are not seasons? Think about your romantic life. Who you are as a partner today, you couldn't have been this partner 20 years ago because you were a different person. Who you are professionally. When I think about the first group of students I taught, oh, my gum drops. I'm like, you talking about blessed they hard. Oh my goodness. If I could walk into that classroom with them now, knowing what I know about teaching, having a different pedagogy, oh my goodness. But I'm not faulting myself because I was brand new. I was fresh. I was fresh out the classroom. And you know how it is when you learn something from a book. That stuff don't work in praxis. It makes sense theoretically, but it doesn't work practically. And so at no point in our lives do we give ourselves over to being a certain way and say, and I'm going to be this way for the rest of my life, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. Even if you make that statement, it's not true. Because something changes you as you grow. Something changes you as you love more. So I used to tell my students, if you want to be a good reader, read. If you want to be better at something, keep doing it. You keep doing it. So the more you do it, the more you practice it, the better you become at it. And the more you change. But yet this particular part of the trapping says, no, I can't ever change this. This is forever my status. That's another thing that makes me think about the system of enslavement. Because when they created us as slaves, I'm saying us because these my people. I'm not ashamed of them. These my people. When they created us as slaves, that was the plan, remember? The plan was that in perpetuity we would be slaves. We would be slaves. Our children would be slaves. Our children's children would be slaves. Our children's children's children would be slaves. And our children's 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 children would be, that was the plan. And so to give that to me now, in a relationship that even if you give me all your wealth, think about the wealth of Purdue Pharma, the people that came up with OxyContin. Even if you gave me all of it, wouldn't even come close enough close to being enough to satisfy the kind of love you get in this relationship. Miss Miss McClay said, me too. I feel the same way about my first class I taught. I'm telling you, we did the best we could with what we had at the time and what we understood and what we knew. But now we know better. We know differently. Even if you don't want to say better, we know things, we understand things differently. We understand children differently. We understand education differently. We understand the system of education differently. We understand testing differently. We understand learning styles differently. We understand so much more now. And so this is an opportunity for us to do the exact same thing while we are on this journey to deciding who Jesus will be, if anybody. But for me, I'm not trying to get rid of Jesus. I'm just trying to divest him from. I'm trying to extract him from all the I don't want to use that word because I don't want to offend anybody. What for me no longer serves me. Let me say it like that. I'm trying to extract him from that which no longer serves me. Miss Luella said she taught for 36 years. Now I know that first class. 36 years later, I know, because I only got 10 years in. I only got 10 years in. Yes, we can extract Jesus from all of that which makes him be of less service to us than he really could be. That I really even feel like Jesus wants. I really feel like Jesus is like, yes, free me so that I can be for you. And one of the ways that you can do that is to know that because I love you, I don't need you to be my slave. Because I love you, I don't need you bound up in chains. Because I love you, I don't need you waking up every morning feeling like you'll never be good enough. I don't need you striving for a perfection that is not possible. I don't. Even me, according to the first picture I showed you, Jesus became sin. So Jesus wasn't even, how you going to be perfect and you sin? How you going to be perfect and you are sin? How can that be possible? And we can come up with all these ways to make it possible, I know. But sometimes don't you get tired of the theological calisthenics? Some of us are the Gabby Douglases. Is that the one that's the best gymnast in the world? That might not be Gabby Douglas. I know she's a gymnast too, but she's I think I thought about her because she is a staunch Christian too. I have her book. I haven't read it yet because I just wasn't it didn't make me feel like Simone Biles. That's what I'm thinking about. Some of us are the Simone Biles of theology. Okay? She can turn flips and contort her body, and she can, yes, Simone Biles. Thank you, Triana. You saving me all kind of ways tonight. She can do things that no one else can do and make it look effortless. She's amazing. And some of us, we take all those turns and distort our theology and contort our understandings to fit something that serves us less effectively than if we would simply say, this don't serve me. I don't need it. I don't need this. I need something else. Let me work on the something else. I'm gonna let this go and I'm gonna work on the something else. So last week I said, okay, I don't need Jesus to be God. And this week I'm saying I don't need to be a slave. So those are the two questions for those of you on this journey with me. Who is Jesus to you? If you first, are you going to choose to keep Jesus? If so, who is Jesus to you? Because again, you can't say Father, the second person of the Trinity, because we're getting away from that. Who is Jesus to you? And then secondly, who are you to Jesus? Are you his slave? Are you his sinner? Oh, well, that might not be the question though. Well, see, it all depends on how you. Let me put up this one last picture because I'm thinking about this right now. I wasn't thinking about it at first. This picture right here. It's a different take on what I said about the separation. So you still have the chasm, but they dropped the cross in the chasm so that you can find your way to God. Because you are sinful, you are separated from God. And so then Jesus is your way. Jesus is your bridge. Jesus is your path. Jesus is the way, right? So that language of "are you Jesus' sinner" might not work if you're looking at it that way. But that's the way that the language is, that you would be a slave to Christ. So that's the question. Who are you to Jesus? Who is Jesus for you? And who are you to Jesus? Two questions we have to answer. I've already said that Jesus is not my God. He ain't my homie either. I'm not like, but we stand together, side by side, like leaders together, revolutionaries together. Yes. And who am I to Jesus? I'm definitely not his slave, and I'm definitely not his sinner. What say you? Let me know. I'm excited. Let me know. We'll be back next week with chapter 3. I'm so excited about this. So excited. See y'all next week. Bye-bye.